but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Tuesday morning brings us Ross Gregory. Good morning, Ross.
Morning, Steve. Morning, everyone.
Great to see you, mate. And Newcastle United back to winning ways at the weekend, Ross, and a change in the team. And, a couple of surprises in there. Callum Wilson, of course, put onto the bench, and Isaac given his chance to shine, and he duly took it. Almiron stuck on the sidelines as well. Jacob Murphy in, although one would have imagined it would have been Anthony Gordon had he not been injured. But Jacob Murphy coming in as well. Joe Linton suspension meant a return for Willock, and Fabian Schär was back in at the expense of Lascelles. So what did he make of the team first off, Ross?
I thought it was brave. I thought it was bold. I thought it was exactly what was needed. I think, certainly in terms of the front four, if you like, they've not been firing. They've not been firing over recent weeks, recent games, probably a good couple of months. Eddie Howe's been loyal, as he always is, to the players, and he's tried a few different things, but in the main kept with the same personnel, mainly in terms of Callum Wilson and Miggy Almiron and one or two others. But I felt it was needed. I think a lot of people on here on the show and watching and in the pubs and bars and everywhere else were crying out for a couple of changes to be made. And he took the bull by the horns, made 5 changes in the end. Obviously a couple were enforced in terms of Anthony Gordon's injury and Joe Linton's suspension. So a couple were forced upon him, but I thought the changes were bold. I slightly disagree with you, Steve, in the sense that I think Jacob Murphy would have started even if Anthony Gordon was fit. I think Gordon maybe would have stayed on the left, and Gordon and Murphy would have come in on the right. I don't know that for certain, obviously, because obviously Maxey can play on the right, and Gordon can as well. There's a bit of versatility there, but I was pleased for Jacob Murphy in that he came in, and I think his performances off the bench have warranted a start. I was really pleased to see Alexander Isak in the team. We've, it's about time we saw what he's capable of and give him a lengthy run in the team, injuries and fitness permitting. And I just felt it all freshened. It freshened everything up. I felt it just freshened the team up. It created a little bit. The intensity was back at the start of the game, or certainly in that first half, in terms of pressing and closing down and winning the ball in that final third, higher up the pitch, putting the opposition under pressure. It just had a feel of more energy, more intensity, a freshness, and it was they got the result that they absolutely A, needed, but B, deserved as well.
Yeah, I think with Gordon's injury, I think it certainly changed things. I do believe Gordon would have played. I think Murphy's earned his chance, by the way. I don't get us wrong. But I just think, ultimately the injury did for him. I thought Murphy played well. I think what Murphy gives you is he gives you enthusiasm, similar to the enthusiasm that we see from Almiron. He likes to get to the byline and cross it in. He's like an old-fashioned winger, isn't he, Ross? He
is. I thought probably the first 5 minutes, he put 2 balls in from literally the byline. Went outside and put a couple of good crosses in, and he's going to give you that. He's going to give you that something a little bit different. Look, is Jacob Murphy the answer in terms of moving forward and challenging for Champions League and trophies every single season? Probably not. Has he got a role to play in this current team, in this current squad? Absolutely. It's a squad game. You've got to pick players based on performance and how they show in training. Look, his attitude is first class, absolutely first class. We all know that he might not have the same levels of quality as an Almiron or Anthony Gordon or Maxey or whatever. But it's not just about the individuals. It's about what you give to a team, what you how you set your teams up and what those players can offer individually and as part of that team ethic. His pressing and his work rate and his intensity levels were absolutely superb in that game. I was really, really pleased for him, and I know he's still going to have his detractors, and I get that. But judge him on what he did on Sunday, and I thought while not being outstanding, while not setting the world alight, he was a vital cog in that Newcastle performance.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. Let's talk about the other flank. ASM comes in for a bit of criticism on this show from certain people. Malcolm McDonald's not a fan. A few of the regular contributors aren't fans of ASM, but we've got some big fans of ASM in the chat and on the show. Keith Patterson, a devotee. Steve Middlemiss in the chat loves ASM, always defends him. I thought he played really well. I thought he was unlucky to get substituted. I see why Howe did it, of course, and ultimately led to Newcastle getting the 3 points as well. But I think the signs of life in ASM, and I think he'll play an important part in the last 11, 12 games of the season.
I think he will. I think you're right, Steve. I think he'll play a vital role. He'll play an important part. He's something that Newcastle don't have. He's something a little bit different. He offers a point of difference to Gordon or Murphy or the other wide players. And you certainly need a player of that ilk and that unpredictability and that quality in the squad and in and around the team, because like I say, you need a point of difference. My issue with ASM is, and it's I suppose it's not really with him. It's more about, I don't know, maybe it's the coaching, and but the answer to that, it's certainly not an issue I've got with Eddie Howe. But Alan St-Maximin's, his USP, if you like, his unique selling point was his ability to dribble. It's his ability to take players on. It's his ability to commit defenders, go past them. Sometimes he'll frustrate, and I've criticised him on here before for frustrating and running into down blind alleys and not necessarily always having the end product. But that's his USP. That is what he brings to the team, is that ability to drive at players, take them on, dribble and whatever. It almost feels a little bit for me that he's that element of him is being coached out of him a little bit. He wants, how many times on Sunday I felt that he was one-on-one with a defender and he just didn't go at him, he didn't drive him, he stopped and then looked for the pass, looked to retain and recycle the possession. And it almost feels that he's in trying to fit into the team shape and what Eddie Howe wants and what the team needs, and from a defensive and from a pressing point of view and from a ball retention point of view. We've actually neutered him a little bit. We've taken that element that makes Alan St-Maximin so exciting and so unpredictable. We've removed that away from him a little bit. So I thought he played okay on Sunday. I was just a little bit disappointed that there was 2 or 3 occasions I thought, just go at him, you're one-on-one, go at him, take him on. That he didn't do it. He's checked and came back inside, or laid it off to Dan Burn, or laid it off to Bruno or Joe Willock or whoever it was. I just thought he could have done a little bit more, almost like what we saw in the game against Liverpool when it was backs to the wall. He needed to keep the ball. He needed to give Newcastle an outlet and drive and dribble and take players on. That's when I've seen him at his best over recent weeks, is when he almost had that little bit more freedom, because Newcastle were at 10 men and he was expected to carry that ball up the pitch. I was just a little bit disappointed, and I'm interested to hear to know what other people think about that, whether they think that he is contributing more to the team because he is fitting more into the team and he's doing more defensive work and he's retaining the ball and doing less dribbling and taking players on, or whether he's actually, as I feel, is that he's being restrained and neutered a little bit. Maybe that's just me, but I'll be interested to hear what other people think.
Yeah, controversial incident John Askew's asking about. He says, I'm in the minority who doesn't think it was a penalty. I'm the same. Jimenez was looking for it, and did he really need to go to ground? Look, I've watched this back in live at the match. You only get one chance to see it. My view of it was from the halfway line, more or less, and I felt it wasn't a penalty. I watched it back. I watched the varying angles, which is the beauty of having the VAR system. You can look at it at different angles. I can see why it wasn't given. The referee was too far away. They decided to go with the on-field decision by the referee. I think Jimenez didn't appeal for it, which I think is always a big pointer. I think Pope looked very sheepish because he's obviously just been in that situation a few weeks back and had a suspension and was aware that if he got a straight red, he was looking at a 4-match ban. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I think VAR got it right. The confusing thing for people at the ground was VAR wasn't registering on the screen. The clocks were off. There was a fault clearly in the system within the ground. So we didn't know what was being checked and what wasn't. We had to rely on looking at the referee, pointing at his ear and talking to the players. And the VAR checks came very, very quickly. That didn't take a long time. So I think all in all, for me, I agree with John. And last night we did a vote on the show. 60% thought it was a penalty, 40% thought it wasn't. So what was your views, Ross?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? If it's for your team, it's a penalty. If it's against your team, it's not a penalty.
Yeah.
Let's be absolutely brutally honest here. If that was Callum Wilson or Alexander Isak at the other end of the pitch, you'd be screaming for it as a penalty. You'd be absolutely tearing whatever hair. Not that you've got a lot left these days, Steve, but whatever hair you've got, you'd be tearing it out. It was. You can see it from both sides. That's how I try to judge these decisions. I think is the fairest way. I try to put myself in. If it was on the other side of the coin, what would I think? I'd be saying penalty. I can understand why it wasn't given. I'm said I can't understand it. Referee was a long way away. VAR obviously had a look, and the point that you make there, Steve, about it being the on-field decision. It's a bit like umpire's call in cricket. For those of you who follow the cricket, it's the on-field call. If the referee had given that as the penalty, VAR wouldn't have overturned it. They absolutely wouldn't have overturned it. There wasn't enough evidence to overturn it, just as there probably wasn't enough concrete evidence to say that it should have been once he hadn't given it. So the on-field decision was really, really important in that. Just like it is in cricket, umpire's call, referee's call, whatever you want to call it. And I thought Nick Pope was very lucky. He was a very, very lucky boy. And I think it affected him for the rest of the game, to be honest. I thought his performance after that was a little bit on the shaky side. Made a couple of decent saves, don't get me wrong, but every time that ball came back to him, he looked a little bit on the shaky side. I thought he had a little fault to play in the goal. I don't think his communication or the nerves in the back line with Trippier or everything, it just didn't sit right. But I thought he got a little bit lucky. If it had been the other end, there would have been 50,000 Newcastle fans absolutely screaming for that.
Yeah, I get your point, mate. I get your point. A lot of people talking about the relationship between ASM and Isak, saying that they really combined well together, and something which the hope will continue. Ian Toon Trader, who says, I think Maxi will score more and get more assists playing alongside Isak as they combine well, and Isak's movement naturally creates space for him. I mean, that's the one thing about Isak. He's very tall, but he's very quick and very deceiving. He catches a lot of defenders off guard, doesn't he? And I've got to be honest, I think Ian's right. They do complement each other.
Yeah, I think they do. It was noticeable that certainly in the first half, there was a couple of times where ASM got the ball and his first thought was to look to try to release Alexander Isak down that kind of left channel, and he put some couple of good balls through, a couple that were intercepted. There does look like there's early signs of a relationship, of a partnership there. Isak does like to play in that left-hand channel. He does like to run into that left-hand channel, similar to a lot of tall, pacey centre forwards that we've seen over the years. Thierry Henry springs to mind, who like to play in that channel a lot. I thought he was excellent, by the way, Alexander Isak. I thought for 65 minutes, he was absolutely outstanding. His work rate, he's pressing, he's harrying, the way he stretched the Wolves defence running in behind, the way that he occasionally dropped into the 10 role and linked the play up. His goal was a real throwback of a header. Absolutely fantastic goal. He just seemed to thrive on that. But more than anything else, the intensity and the work rate and the pressing that he gave Newcastle across that front line until he ran out of gas was excellent. But yeah, him and in ASM look like they could have the makings of a good partnership.
Yeah, I think so as well. Jules says, I don't think it was a penalty. Jimenez was already going down. Ian says Jimenez jumped into Pope and caused the collision. No penalty for me. Roger agrees. I was in among others who gave me a funny look when I said it's not a penalty. Chris says Jimenez was looking for contact, which is what the referee and VAR thought as well. And Les says maybe he could have scored if he'd simply played the ball and not played for a penalty. Ian says, agree, Staples. I think ASM was class with Isaac and will only get better with that partnership. And yeah, lots of opinions coming. Keep them coming in. John Askew asked earlier on, he says, morning all the lads back on track. Can we give Liverpool and Tottenham a good fight for fourth? If we beat Manchester United and win our game in hand, I think we'd go above them as well. Big month this coming up, isn't it, Ross? Really. We've got Nottingham Forest on Friday night. Then we've got a 2-week break, which, of course, allows Newcastle to go away to Dubai. They've announced they're going to have a training camp. And then they come back. We've got a succession of, I would say, winnable games. Even the Manchester United game, which is at home, Newcastle will certainly be up for that, looking for a little bit of revenge. We had the added bonus of hearing the Casemiro being shown another red card, meaning he's now suspended for 4 games and misses the trip to St James's Park. We've then got, due to the fact that the West Ham game, which was postponed for the for the funeral last year, has now been rearranged in the middle of 2 away games. We've now got 3 away games: Brentford, West Ham, and Aston Villa. So ultimately, Newcastle have got those games. I think by the time we get to Spurs, we'll have a good idea of where we're at and where we're going to finish, won't we?
Absolutely. It's coming up to a kind of crucial period. I don't think there's any team in the Premier League at the minute that Newcastle should fear. There's no team that they should be scared of taking on. And that includes Arsenal, Man United, Spurs, and that. I think when Newcastle are at their best, as they've shown even in the defeats against Liverpool and Man City and Man United in that three game run, they were competitive in all 3 of those games. Without maybe having the quality in that final third, which again will probably dictate where Newcastle finish in the league this season is the quality in that final third, I think, and the ability to convert whatever chances they get in games. I thought against Wolves on Sunday, I keep saying Saturday, on Sunday, it should have been Newcastle should have been out of sight by half time, and that inability to be as ruthless as what you'd hope for nearly came back to bite them on the backside. So it's a good crucial period, I think, Steve. I think it's one which will ultimately define where Newcastle finish this season. Can they keep the pressure on for fourth? We hope so. But it's going to be a tough ask I know Liverpool had a bad result at the weekend, but with the squads and the strength and depth and the quality that Liverpool, Man United, Spurs have to finish in and around or above them will be a tough ask. I still think, even with a bit of momentum going, if they can get that momentum that was shown between the start of the season and the World Cup break, then anything's possible. But it still needs a little bit more to click for me. I'm reluctant to say Newcastle are fully back, but there were some really encouraging signs against Wolves.
Yeah, no, I think there was, mate, and something we can be optimistic about. I think going into the next few games. Was Lascelles unlucky? I mean, we talk how well he played against Manchester City. I get the impression, he's unlucky. We know he is, but I think he knows his place.
Yeah, I think so, Steve. I agree. I think he played fantastically well. Arguably one of the best players on the pitch in Newcastle colours. Very unlucky not to keep his place, but it would have been more of a shock, I think, if he had kept his place and Fabian Schär had been on the bench. I think that would have raised more eyebrows. Eddie Howe's got his favoured back four, which includes Fabian Schär and Sven Botman as a partnership there, and they've, with the defensive record Newcastle have got over this season, it's very difficult to argue with that, whether you're a fan or whether you're Jamal Lascelles. Dan Burns still in at left back when there was a lot of clamour and a lot of calls for Matt Targett to come in. Dan Burn was still the option at left back, and I think that will probably continue now for the majority of the rest of the season as well. That'll be the preferred back four for Eddie Howe. He wants consistency, he wants solidity, he wants players who understand each other's games, and that looks the case. So for Jamal Lascelles, it will be disappointing. He couldn't have done any more against City, but yeah, he's probably just going to have to accept that he will be third choice now.
Yeah, good performance by Newcastle. Even the ball boy looked class. Yeah, Chris, that was superb. I'm not sure whether it was mentioned by the TV commentators, but the ball boy, the ball came over and he just basically caught it on his instep and got a round of applause by the crowd. Was that featured, Ross?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was a little replay of it as well, a little focused in on it, and there's a couple of newspapers done pieces yesterday as well. The Star did a piece, and which was one of the best read pieces on the Star when I was looking at the numbers this morning, and the Chronicle did a piece as well. So yeah, it was featured on Sky on Sunday. Yeah.
Well done, that lad. Darren Lee, is there any truth in the Raphinha rumours? I like to see the likes of James Ward-Prowse and James Maddison come in the summer, but if Raphinha's a target, would the club sell ASM? Chronicles run with this, Ross. Any news on this particular story?
He's one of a number that Newcastle look at and like. So there will be in the market for another wide player, I think, in the summer. And Raphinha ticks a lot of boxes. He's obviously he's Brazilian. He knows a lot of a couple of lads who are obviously in the Newcastle squad at the minute. So it makes a lot of sense. Interesting story about Raphinha. He was offered to Newcastle back in probably 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe. Trying to think the date. It was around the transfer window when Newcastle signed Miggy Almiron when Rafa was still manager. Newcastle were offered Raphinha for around about 12 million at the time. Didn't follow it up. Had already committed 18, 19 million or whatever it was to sign a Miggy Almiron. And so Raphinha stayed at his club in Portugal at the time. Eventually, obviously, made his way to Leeds and lit up the Premier League, and then got his big money move to Barcelona. Newcastle could have had him for 12 million at one point. But that's what happens with transfer deals. They were already too far down the line, and other sites focused on Miggy Almiron. I think he'd be a fantastic addition to the Newcastle squad, but there'll be a lot of clubs who will be interested in him. He scored the winner for Barcelona at the weekend as well. So a high quality player, but Newcastle will be in the market for a number of high quality players, I think, this summer.
Yeah, I can't see us paying Raphinha's wages, says Mag debates. Wait and see. Ian Toon Trader says, question for Ross. Do you think Eddie will ask Isak to not go away on international duty to work on his fitness? Of course, in the press conference at the weekend, he said that he wasn't at his optimum fitness. So, that's a key phrase which Howe's used with other players in the past. Pointed to the fact he'd been out with a concussion injury, which set him back slightly, meaning he'd missed a week's training. And also, maintained that, at this moment in time, it's the high press. I think he struggles to play, 90 minutes in the high press, the formation that he likes to play. So, yeah, I mean, is that an option? Do you think he would ask him not to go away on international duty? It's your opinion, of course.
Yeah, I don't know if he would ask him. It might be left to the player to decide. Obviously, last time he was away on international duty, he came back with that hamstring injury, which ruled him out for months and months. So I'm sure Eddie Howe would be delighted if he could wrap him up in cotton wool. Like I said, I thought he was excellent on Sunday. He's pressing and his work rate and his intensity. There was no surprise that he was absolutely gassed out after 65 minutes or however long it was, because he put that much into it. And Eddie Howe, he had to clarify his comments by saying that Isak wasn't fit. He's obviously fit, but he's just, like you say, Steve, not necessarily as fit as Eddie Howe, or fit enough to play the way that Eddie Howe wants. And he wants his front players to be pressing for for 75, 80, 85, 90 minutes. And he's maybe just a little bit short on that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see with the international call-ups, because all players like to go away with their international teams and like to have that kudos of playing for that country. So Isaac will be no different, but I'm sure Eddie Howe would be might be having a quiet word in his ear to see if he can stay on Tyneside.
Yeah, be interesting to see what happens. Anthony Gordon's injury. Any updates on that? Ankle injury, isn't it?
It is. It's an ankle injury. He picked it up against Man City. Didn't seem to be a bit of an issue at the time during the game, but afterwards it started to get more painful and swell up and everything else like that. So I think he'll have another scan over the next few weeks. It sounds like it might be a bit longer than what you'd hoped for. That he might not be 100% ready for the Man United game after the international break, and that he might miss a couple of games further after the international break, which is a blow for the lad, blow for Newcastle. He spent 40-45 million on a player in January, and he's not really had a chance to shine through being cup tied and now through injury and whatnot. So a bit of a blow for the player, a bit of a blow for Newcastle. But they've certainly got a couple of options with ASM, with Jacob Murphy, with Miguel Almiron, Alexander Isak, a few others who can play, Joe Linton who can play out wide. So they're not short on options, but it's a shame for Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, no, it definitely is sad to see a player come in, like happened with Isak, and then suddenly end up on the doctor's couch, if you like, the physio's couch. But hopefully he will be back sooner rather than later. Andy Ambleton, good morning, mate. Good to see you at the weekend. He says, any truth in the Saudi sponsorship rumours? Lots of rumours flying around as well about that.
Yeah. I think as soon as everybody saw that story about the airline, they put two and two together and thought it might be worth a sponsorship deal. I've got no insight into that whatsoever. I don't know anything around the sponsorship deals and what's being worked on, what isn't being worked on. But I think there's no doubt at all Newcastle will have some sort of big sponsorship deal tied up over the summer, and you wouldn't be surprised if it did have Saudi connections.
Yeah, you did certainly think so. Okay, get your questions in for Ross for the second half of the show. We're going to go to the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay as you go, waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from mrvickies.co.uk or by calling 01768 210 102. Welcome aboard to Fruy Vita Getaways. You can email them at fruivitagetaways@gmail.com. Call or text them 0792 842 7895. Please join and share their Facebook group as well at Fruy Vita Getaways. Book your holidays or short breaks in the UK or around the world with them. Let them find your happy place. ABTA and ATOL registered. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. And the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com, where you can buy lots of t-shirts and merchandise. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the subscribe button underneath this video today. It is free to do so. Hit the thumb up to like the video. It's good for the algorithm. And click share to your other social media. If you do subscribe, we do send you a free car sticker. To get that, email john@nufcmatters.com and he'll post you one out. If you want to join the NUFC Matters cult, then put your smartphone over this QR code now and it will take you straight there. Alternatively, go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and you can join for a one-off payment of £25. You'll receive a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also join via YouTube, and if you click join beneath the video, you will see a variety of prices and how you can support the channel. You can alternatively make a donation with a super chat in the chat tonight Just click the $sign. We're also available on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast providers. We also help the food bank on this show. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is where you'll find the matchday bucket, and you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. As always, we've got a whole host of events coming up throughout the year. An evening with Nobby Solano takes place on Saturday the 25th of March at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley at Leamington Labour Club. Tickets are £20. 31st of March. And you can get them direct from the venue. An evening with Nobby Solano. Good Friday the 7th of April at 4 p.m. Tickets are a tenner and available behind the bar at Felling Cricket Club in Gateshead. An evening with Supermac, hosted by Gibbo at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe, Tuesday the 11th of April. And tickets direct from the venue. This is a limited ticket event, only 35 tickets available, so book soon. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April. Tickets are £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. In June, Rob Lee will be at Louis' Liquor Store in Newcastle, and you can get tickets direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark, John Beresford takes place the following evening, Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. This is in aid of the Heel and Toe charity, and tickets are available from their website, www.heelandtoe.org.uk/events. And if you're a boxing fan, the Night of Champions comes to Gateshead at the Fed. Frank Bruno, Ricky Hatton, Nigel Benn and Joe Calzaghe are part of the UK tour, and you can get your tickets from www.goldstarpromotions.co.uk.
Couple of little things to add to that. I'll have to do some new ads. The Solano event at the Felling Cricket Club is now sold out. And the event with Nobby Solano, Tuesday the 2nd of May at the Surf Cafe, there are only 6 tickets left. So if you're intending to go to that, get your tickets now from the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. John Anderson is now on sale at the Surf Cafe on Tuesday the 18th of April. So get yourself onto the website if you want to come down and see Ando. It's always a good night. Don't forget as well, Peter Beardsley Soccer School, ages 6 to 16 years, takes place 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 11th of April. For more information, go to peterbeardsleysoccerschool.com. And there are only 9 tickets left on the Alan Shearer signed ball. $150 a ticket. And now at nufcmatters.com if you want to win a signed Alan Shearer ball. 9 tickets left. You've got to be in it to win it. Okay, so next question was from Paul Charlton. He says, can you ask Ross his opinion on us going for Firmino in the summer to take us to the next level? Marquee signings. That would be a marquee signing. It's whether Newcastle have got the money to afford his wages is always going to be the question, and how that affects the financial fair play. But will we see a Firmino or somebody like that, do you think, in the summer?
I don't know. I don't know if they'll go down that route. I don't know if it necessarily fits the kind of type of player that Newcastle are targeting. I think he's 31 now. Firmino had a fantastic career. It's still a fantastic player. Personally, I think it would be a great signing. I think it'd be somebody who would absolutely enhance the team and provide something very, very different to what Newcastle have got. He's obviously he's told Liverpool that he's not going to sign a new contract, and he's on his way on a free transfer in the summer. I'd expect Firmino to have a number of offers, both in Europe and probably further far afield. Possibly in Saudi and the USA and places like that. I think he'll not be short of a few offers. I think it would be a really, really good signing, like I say, but I'm not sure that's the profile of players that Newcastle are targeting at the minute.
No, me neither. Great, moving forward if that was the case. But yeah, I agree. Alan Thompson says, Ross, there's no easy answer to the penalty incident. All 19 other clubs think VAR is against them. Whether Pope and a penalty or not, at the end of the day, it's all about human error. Yeah, which is a point we've made on the show before. Laura Connor, good morning. She went, hiya, Steve, panel and chat. I hope you all have a great day. You'll never walk alone. Laura, nice to have you on. Thank you. Gordon has minor ligament damage. It's definitely an ankle ligament damage. Chris, and he's going to be out, obviously after the international break, before we see him, which is disappointing. Riyadh money coming our way, Ross. There certainly will be some kind of money coming our way, Roger. Leave it to the experts. I'm sure we've got the right people in charge. John Askew says Willock was excellent on Sunday. Could that enforced rest have helped him regain some sharpness? And could a little rest help one or two others in the team? We seem to have a few options now. Great point. Willock was my man of the match, Ross. What about you?
My man of the match as well, Steve. I thought he was outstanding. I thought his energy levels, his ability on the ball, he's pressing, he's running, his link up play. I thought he was excellent. He's had that little rest because he had the injury and whatnot. It was great to see him kind of take on a bit more responsibility in that midfield in Joe Linton's absence. I thought he was outstanding. And I think it's a good point about the rest. I think, I know he still played on Sunday, but and obviously came on and scored the winner. But I thought, Miggy Almiron probably needed a bit of a break and come out, and he looked so fresh when he came on because he was able to put everything into that last 20-25 minutes when Wolves were a little bit stretched or a little bit tired as well. So we all know Newcastle don't have the strongest or squad in terms of depth and ability to rotate as much as what some other teams would do, but taking 4 or 5 players out of the team on Sunday and replacing them with some good quality players, it didn't necessarily weaken the side too much. And I think certainly Callum Wilson maybe will benefit from a rest. Miggy Almiron will benefit from a rest. Joe Linton will probably benefit from having a 3 or 4 weeks off with his suspension, and then the international break as well. So I think the international break's coming at a good time as well. Able to get over to do some warm weather training and kind of refresh themselves and go again. So it certainly looked like a reinvigorated and re-energized Newcastle team on Sunday.
Willock was just, one of those players when he came in on loan. He was firing on all cylinders. He was scoring goals, and he can adapt. I think that's the best thing about him. But his work rate was fantastic, and I a lot of people disagree with me, but I thought Longstaff had a good game. He didn't give the ball away. He did all the dirty work, and he helped Willock massively in the midfield.
Yeah, look, Sean Longstaff is never going to be winning many popularity contests, rightly or wrongly. I think he's always going to be one of those that because he's not as high profile, or he's not such a flair player or whatever, he's one of those that will become a bit of a target at times. But I thought again, just solid 7 out of 10 on Sunday. And it goes back to the Jacob Murphy conversation. You need players who will do different roles within a team. You can't have Newcastle on at the point in their journey, in their evolution, where they can have a team full of flair players, superstars, whatever. You need to get that mix right. You need to get that blend right. And there's games and times where you need grafted, you need work rate, you need intensity, you need pressing. Newcastle's game, so much of their game this season and their success this season has been based on winning the ball high up in the pitch, putting teams under pressure. I read a piece, I think it might have been in The Athletic before the game at the weekend, where they were comparing the stats on Newcastle winning the ball back in the top third of the pitch, kind of before the international break, or on the first 13-14 games, compared it to how many times they'd won it in the similar period after. And Newcastle had been top in that first period, and they were bottom of the whole Premier League in terms of winning the ball back. So it shows that that's such a key part of Newcastle's game. When they were having so much success, it was because they were pressing, because the intensity levels were high, and they were winning the ball back in dangerous areas. In the period where the results weren't quite as strong, the correlation was that overhauling that ball at the top end of the pitch, it dropped. The numbers had dropped, and the intensity levels had dropped. You need players like Sean Longstaff, Jacob Murphy, Miggy Almiron, Joe Willock, who will do that high energy, hard yards, graft, dirty work, which will then allows you some of your more flair players to shine. So Sean Longstaff's got a really important part in this team. So is Joe Willock, so is Jacob Murphy, so is a number of players who, while they might not be as high profile and shine as much, they contribute immeasurably to the team ethic.
Steve Nucken says, do you think that incoming players' wages will be on par with those we already have or catch as they progress in the team? I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? We don't really know what our players are on, and you only really find it out as a fan or a journalist when, say, one of them ends up in court and we hear that they've been fined 2 weeks' wages for something. You know what I mean? That's when we have an idea, I would guess, Ross.
Yeah. I mean, Newcastle obviously got a wage structure that they want to stick to. That will stay in place for certainly probably the next year or so. But as you want to improve and you bring in better players, you're going to have to pay more money. That's just the fact of life. You know, if you want to bring in a superstar or a better player who's going to improve the team, then you know you're going to have to increase your wages that you pay to them. That's where Newcastle need to get their commercial activity improved and get for financial fair play, so that the wages to turnover ratio is kept within acceptable levels. But yeah, I would certainly expect the salary structure to increase over the next few years as better, more high profile players come into the squad.
Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday was interesting yesterday, wasn't it? It was announced that they had to reduce the capacity by 1,000 after the FA Cup incident that Newcastle fans found themselves in. BT says Sheffield City Council did not reveal the full detail of the findings of a safety review. 15 recommendations were made, including the removal of a corrugated fence and a review of ticketing errors. Yeah, it was interesting that, and it sends shivers through your spine, doesn't it, when you think back to that incident and of course what happened at Hillsborough all those years ago.
Yeah, it's an intriguing one. You know, it was great that Newcastle fans were given the platform and the voice, and that ultimately their concerns and their issues have been listened to, and some recommendations have been made. I wasn't at Hillsborough for that game, but I have spoken to a couple of friends who were there who had some real concerns about how the situation was handled. I mean, I am staggered that Hillsborough is still standing, if you like, and after what's happened in '89. I'm staggered that there hasn't that certainly that end hasn't been knocked down and rebuilt or something else like that. But you know, that's a conversation for another day, I suppose. I like Sheffield Wednesday as a club. I like. I think they've got some great support, and they are one of the few remaining sleeping giants within English football, I think. But yeah, it was great that Newcastle fans' voices have been listened to, and that some recommendations have been made, which will hopefully improve safety and the matchday experience for visiting fans at Hillsborough in future.
Yeah, I think ultimately, the decision has been made, and it's been made correctly with safety in mind. And the story. Jules says, whilst I appreciate some want big name signings, I don't necessarily believe it's what you have to do for success. It doesn't mean either you attract other big names. In my opinion, we don't need a team of egos. I'm liking the organic diamond in a rough gradual approach, already paying dividends. Good point, Jules. Spot on, Ross, says Alan. We will need graft and hard work against Nottingham Forest on Friday. Bruno, yeah, he had a bit of an off day at the weekend, didn't he?
He did, Steve. He's had a few off days for me lately. He's just not been at the levels that we expect or that we've come to recognise him. That's fine. It's understandable. Not every player is gonna be a 9 out of 10 every game. We know the levels that he can play. I think he's obviously been hindered and hampered by an ankle injury, an ankle knock, and how much that's affecting him is only he probably knows at this point. But he's certainly not at the levels that we know he can. What he does do, though, he knits that midfield together. His positional play and the role that he plays in that Newcastle midfield allows Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock or Joe Linton to play a slightly different role as well, and to press higher. So he's integral to the team even when he's not at his best. Let's hope he gets back to putting them great performances in that we know he can, and he gets himself fully fit as well.
Mind that last minute back heel, which was into the path of Almiron, and Botman should have scored, let's face it. But what a ball that was.
Yeah, and that's what you get with him as well. He might be quiet in some games, but he's still got that ability to produce that little bit of magic. I was trying to think of another player in the Newcastle team who would have A, tried that, or B, kind of pulled it off. Maybe St. Maximin would have done it or something like that. But there's not many players in Newcastle's squad who would have attempted that and had the ability to execute it as well as what he did as well. So he is that cut above everything else that Newcastle have got at the minute. Even when he's not, like I say, even when he's not at full pelt, even when he's not at the very top of his game, he's still so important to how Newcastle play.
Yeah, he really is. And, he's, again, another player that's going to be vital in this running and dictate exactly where we are going to finish. And a lot of other comments coming in. John says, totally agree on egos and big names. It's the right player with the right character. That's the key. Ronaldo at Old Trafford. Les says, Longstaff's done amazingly well despite being literally ignored for the cabbage years. To turn that round is a credit to him and our management team, including Richie. Eddie Howe is overrated. I've just taken Newcastle into the Champions League in my first season on Football Manager with only 40 million to spend, says Northumberland Geordie. Well done, that man. And Longstaff isn't a bad player, but he lacks some creativity that we sorely need in midfield, in my opinion. And 10k a week and I'll sign, says Northumberland Geordie. Hey, you might have to come in as a manager if anything happens with Eddie Howe. I do think, overall though, whatever happens this season, it'll have been a great one for us. We haven't been in a relegation battle. We've been to a cup final. We should be very happy. We did discuss last night in the fans forum about where you would like to finish. Which European competition would you like to finish in? Do you want Champions League, Ross? Would you be settling for the Europa on my first venture back to Europe since the Pardew days, or would you be happy with the Conference League, or would you rather miss out at all? What's your take on European spots?
That's a good question, Steve. It's a good question, that one. My concern with Europe is the strength of the squad and the depth of the squad, and to be able to cope on both fronts. I've said it on this show before, but you see the impact that it sometimes has on teams who get into Europe. Maybe it's a year too early, or when they're not quite ready, or they're a bit of a surprise. West Ham, Leicester's, teams like that, where it becomes really, really tough in terms of playing on a Thursday, playing on a Sunday, playing on a Thursday, playing on a Sunday. And I know it's the same cadence, I know it's the same gap as if you were playing on a Wednesday to a Saturday, but it just feels, it has a different feel about it. I read Martin O'Neill's autobiography the other day, and he was talking there similar about it, about getting into that Europa League and playing on a Thursday and a Sunday. It just has a different feel. If you're playing on a Sunday, you almost feel as if you're playing catch up a lot of the time for games in the league. If teams have played on a Saturday and have got points on the board or whatever, so it does have a different feel. And Newcastle's squad isn't quite as strong in depth as what it needs. So it would need some real serious reinforcements in the summer. In terms of which competition, to me it's a no-brainer. The only competition I think Newcastle, or not the only one, but the one that they should absolutely be targeting is the Champions League. And I know people will say, the team's not ready, the squad's not ready. And they're absolutely right. The squad isn't strong enough to compete in the Champions League, and it might have some tough nights if Newcastle did get into that Champions League spot. But let's go for it. The profile of the club would raise immeasurably, and you'd be able to attract better players. The finances would be boosted so much, and you'd be able to attract a better caliber of player. So if Newcastle have got any chance of finishing that top four, they should absolutely go for it. Finishing 5th or 6th or 7th would still be fantastic. Let's be honest about it. If you'd said it at the start of the season, would you take 7th place in a European Conference finish in that, then you would absolutely snap the hands off. We all want to see European football in whatever state, in whatever competition at St James's Park next season. But just imagine that Champions League anthem ringing out. Imagine seeing, Paris Saint-Germain and Mbappe and Messi and whoever else, or Real Madrid or Barcelona back at St James's Park. They're the nights that we want. Yes, we're being greedy probably, and it's probably too early in the evolution of the club. But I would love to see Newcastle finish in the top 4 and get those big European nights back on Tyneside, and those away trips as well. All those trips to the San Siro or to the Nou Camp or wherever. Fantastic days, fantastic nights. Let's go for it.
Can't understand why anyone wouldn't want Champions League. You have to aim for the top. We'll add players with the funds that become available, which is a good point. Champions League revenue, and if and when we lose, then the UEFA. So that's a good way of looking to it as well. Darren says Champions League next season, the last of the group stage before the league format in 2025. Alan says, Ross, we're going to have these concerns in 5 years' time, even with a stronger squad. Yes, our squad is not good enough for Champions League spot, but go for the Champions League. Yes. Have you ever seen a Macam in Milan? Says Roger. No, I don't think I have. That's the answer to that. So Newcastle United play first this weekend, which is is sometimes a bonus, sometimes it's sometimes it's a bit of a nightmare. But from our perspective, it is a chance for another 3 points. We go to Nottingham Forest Friday night, again live on television, live on Sky Sports. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, and this is our first top league visit to Nottingham Forest City Ground since 1999. Joe Linton, of course, won't be available. He will be having his second match suspension. And as we've already touched on the show this morning, Anthony Gordon will be unavailable. As for Nottingham Forest, well, they have a few injury concerns. Willie Bowley, Scott McKenna, Taiwo Awoni and Dean Henderson and Julian Biancon and Omar Richards are all sidelined. You forget how many players these have got, by the way, don't you? Which players they've got. They've also got Kouyaté and Hennessy and Brennan Johnson, all rated doubtful. And anyone who saw Brennan Johnson's performance a couple of weeks ago will be thankful for that. At the moment, as far as we can gather, Chris Wood won't be eligible to play because he remains on loan from Newcastle, even though a permanent move has been agreed. However, a hamstring injury saw him withdrawn 6 minutes after coming on last weekend against Spurs. Might see him on the sick list anyway, so we'll wait and see. There's no problems, though, for another St James's Park old boy, which is John Joe Shelvey. He completed his move, of course, to the Nottingham Forest City Ground earlier this year. Hasn't finished on the winning side yet, though. So let's hope that's not me tempting fate. Jack Colback is also at Forest. He has featured quite a bit. Played 11 Premier League games so far this season, including a 2-0 opening day loss at St James's Park. They are without a win in the last 5 Premier League games, but they've got a good home record. They've won 5, they've drawn 5, and they've lost 3. And the 3 defeats all came towards the start of the season. Newcastle, of course, looking to extend their unbeaten Premier League run at Forest to 10 games. And that would be fantastic. Paul Tierney is the referee. This is his 3rd game of the season looking after Newcastle. He was in charge of the 4-0 home win over Villa, the 2-1 success against Southampton in the EFL Cup. And he was also the person who gave the red card to Bruno in the closing stages. VAR is Peter Banks. Okay, Ross, this is a huge game for Newcastle, really, because, a win against Wolves at home was very important. It stopped the rot. Get another win on the road going into the international break. Newcastle have a trip away to Dubai. Get your heads together. Start focusing on the run in now. But this is a huge, huge game, isn't it?
It's massive, Steve. Yeah, it really is. It's a big, big opportunity for Newcastle to show that they are, worthy challengers for the top 4, top 5. I love a Friday night game personally. I think they're great. You know, I'm not saying I'd like to see every game on a Friday night, but I think a Friday night game is it's just something different. It's unique. It's you know, quite special. So I'm looking forward to the match. It's going to be a tough one, I think, this one, Steve. You're right in pointing out Forest's home record is pretty decent. It's certainly a lot better than their away record. They've got you know, I think they beat Liverpool this season at home. They've drawn with Chelsea. They've beaten, you know, Leeds and Leicester and lots of good teams, you know. So the Spurs as well, I think. So they've got a really strong home record, and it'll be a tough game. There'll be a passionate crowd down there and under the lights, and on a Friday night it'll be a real good atmosphere and a real good experience. So yeah, important game going into the weekend and going into the international break. You want to finish on a high. Let's hope that the players can follow up the performance on Sunday with another really strong performance against Forest. You know, for all that I've built Forest up there, there's nothing to be frightened about. You know, it's Nottingham Forest. You know, they've got a good team and a good record and some good players, but there's nothing to be frightened about. Newcastle should go there full of confidence and full of positivity after the weekend win. I would like to see a very, very similar team, if not exactly the same, similar starting 11 that faced Wolves. I'd like to see something similar against Forest. I don't, unless there's some knocks or niggles or injuries that emerged this week, then I think everybody who started that game against Wolves deserves to keep their shirt. And then even keep Miggy Almiron on the bench. No, he came on and scored the winner, and he's top goal scorer. But I would still go with the same starting 11, and then have the options of Almiron and Callum Wilson and one or two others coming off the bench. But it will be a tough game, but nothing to be frightened about. And let's hope for another 3 points.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think an unchanged team is on the cards. I think everybody earned the right to have a go again at the weekend, and yeah, hopefully it will be another win. I'll have a word with Peter Banks on VAR, says Chris Banks. See if he can do us a few favours. Well, let's hope so, mate. Let's hope so. If you can do that, that would be absolutely fantastic. I am back tomorrow. 10:30 again in the morning with Ben Jacobs, who is back on the show, and we are going to be announcing a couple more events, including an end of season party, which is the day before the final game of the season, 27th of May. We always have a bit of a get together and try and raise a few quid for the food bank with a few raffles, etc. Tickets are a tenner. NUFCmatters.com. Admin and all of the moderators welcome, of course, and if you want to come along and support our end of season party, it's booked in now, Saturday the 27th of May, 7 o'clock. I know the likes of Jules and Rachel will want to get the trains booked, so hopefully that is a date that you can all make. It'll be good to see everybody and catch up. Ross, as always, mate, absolute pleasure speaking to you about Newcastle United, and look forward to having you on again next week, mate. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Take care, everyone.